You ever walk into a room and just know, that you don't belong there? That was me, on a blisteringly hot Father's Day afternoon, walking through the marbled foyer of the Redstone Ridge Resort in Central Texas. Crystal chandeliers above me. Waiters in tuxedos passing out champagne like it was water. And me? I was wearing a department store blazer, sweat crawling down my back, trying not to touch anything too expensive. I hadn't even wanted to come. "It's going to be special," Whitney had said on the phone. "We're honoring the fathers in our lives." I don't know why I believed her. Maybe because, despite everything, I still wanted to believe she remembered. That I mattered. That somewhere under the designer labels and those cold, business school smiles, my daughter still saw the man who fixed her scraped knees and stayed up late helping her outline mock trial arguments in high school. The man who sold his truck to cover her first semester of law school. The man who raised her alone after her mother died. But what I walked into was a performance. They held the dinner in a private ballroom that looked like it had been airlifted straight from Versailles. Long table set for 30, fresh flowers flown in from Colombia, custom menus with everyone's name in gold calligraphy. When I found my place card, it was tucked between two strangers Whitney introduced as Jordan's business partners. Jordan, her husband, stood at the head of the table in a tailored white suit, drinking something pink from a crystal flute. He was tan in that overdone, always on vacation kind of way. The kind of guy who shook your hand like it was a stock he was thinking of shorting. "Rob. You made it, man." He hugged me like he was trying to get it over with. Whitney smiled, wide and brittle, kissed my cheek, and then vanished to mingle with the hedge fund crowd. I was left standing there with my hands in my pockets, drowning in a sea of $10,000 watches. Dinner was fine. Overpriced steak. Some beet salad nobody touched. A chocolate souffle that collapsed under the weight of its own pretension. But then came the gifting segment. That's what they called it. Jordan clinked his glass. "All right, everybody, it's that time. Let's show some love to the dads." First up, his own father, Doug. A man built like a yacht and just as smug. Whitney handed him a gift-wrapped box the size of a dorm fridge. He opened it and the room gasped. A brand new Tesla key fob. "Doug," Whitney said, all beaming pride, "you've been a second father to me. I wanted to say thank you." Applause. Cheers. Even the waiters smiled. Then Whitney turned to me. "And of course," she said, her voice just a tad louder, "we couldn't forget my other dad." A waiter placed a small, beat-up box in front of me. It looked like it had been sat on. Twice. I opened it. Inside was a thrift store wallet, creased, cracked, reeking faintly of mildew. Tucked into one slot was a $5 bill and a note. "Don't spend it all in one place, old man." The room erupted. Laughter from every side. A few people tried to smother it behind napkins. Jordan doubled over, slapping Doug on the back. Whitney laughed too, high-pitched, forced, but it was laughter all the same. "Just a little joke," she said, like I was the one who needed convincing. "Come on, lighten up." I tried to smile. Nodded. Said thank you. Even raised the wallet like it was a trophy. I excused myself to the restroom a few minutes later and never went back. No one called to ask why. I took an Uber back to the hotel Whitney had booked for me, far from the resort. Not the Redstone, no, not where the rest of the party was staying. A cheap off-brand place by the highway where the ice machine didn't work. As I lay there on the hard mattress staring at the popcorn ceiling, that damn wallet sat on the nightstand like a punchline with leather skin. My hands clenched, then unclenched. This wasn't anger. This was something colder. Cleaner. A new kind of resolve. And it started with $5 and a lie called love. The flight back to Missouri was quiet. Middle seat, no conversation. A screaming toddler 2 rows up and a stale bag of pretzels that tasted like cardboard. I stared out the window, but I wasn't looking at the clouds. I was counting every moment I'd given Whitney. Every compromise. Every late night. Every paycheck that never went to me. When I got home, the air smelled like rain and rust. My house, modest, 2-bedroom, paint peeling near the gutters, sat quiet like it always had. Still full of her footprints. Still full of echoes. I left my suitcase by the door and walked straight to the back porch, collapsed into the old rocker, and let it all hit me. She gave a man like Doug a Tesla, and handed me a moldy wallet. I should have been angry. Should have been pacing, ranting, punching something. But I wasn't. I was tired. Tired in a way that made my bones ache. You see, I'd spent my life folding myself smaller and smaller so Whitney could grow. I worked double shifts at the steel mill when she needed braces. Drove a busted pickup with a cracked windshield for 8 years so she could go to summer camp, violin lessons, mock trial regionals. When she got into Georgetown Law, I cried. And then I emptied every damn account I had to get her there. That included a retirement fund I'd started with her mother. And a vacation fund I'd built up slowly over the years, a trip to Ireland we used to dream about. Gone in one wire transfer. She knew that. She knew. And I don't regret doing it. Not even now. That's the part people don't get. Sacrifice, real sacrifice, doesn't come with conditions. I never expected her to pay me back. But I also never expected to be forgotten. Or worse, laughed at. It wasn't just the wallet. It was what it represented. That somewhere along the way, my daughter stopped seeing me as her father and started seeing me as a burden. An embarrassment. Some outdated accessory she was obligated to acknowledge. I sat out there until the sky went dark and the porch light buzzed on, moths slapping against the glass. I didn't eat. Didn't drink. Just sat with it all. The next morning, I opened the file cabinet in my bedroom closet. Pulled out the folders I hadn't touched in years, bank statements, tax returns, birth certificates. I was looking for something else. Something I'd almost forgotten about. It was a shared inheritance account, opened right after her mother passed. Back then, I thought it was the right thing to do. Put Whitney's name on it. Let her access it when she was old enough to be responsible. I never touched it after the funeral. Figured she'd use it for something important one day. Turns out, she did. Because right there in the withdrawal history was a $28,000 debit. 3 weeks ago. Description, vehicle purchase, Tesla of Austin. My stomach sank. That's how she paid for Doug's Tesla. Not only had she used our shared inheritance account, money that was supposed to honor her mother's memory, she didn't even tell me. She used it for him. The man who'd only been in her life a handful of years. The man who called me, big guy, like I was some drunk uncle crashing the party. My hands started shaking. I had to sit down. I'd been a silent partner in my own replacement. It was that moment, that very second, when the ache turned to clarity. Not revenge. Not yet. But the idea of it. The seed. A need to step out of the role I'd been playing for too long, the dependable dad, the doormat, the leftover. I walked through my house and saw it differently. The worn recliner. The faded photo of Whitney in her cap and gown. The dusty treadmill I bought after my second cholesterol scare. All of it felt small. Like relics from a life that had been paused while everyone else moved forward. So I opened a drawer. Not the one with the bills or old birthday cards. The junk drawer in the kitchen. You know the one. Everyone has one. Full of batteries that don't work, expired coupons, safety pins, restaurant menus from places that closed down years ago. And in the very back corner, underneath a stained takeout napkin, I found it. A lottery ticket. Mega jackpot. $5. Bought it on a whim at a gas station in Texas the day before the Father's Day dinner. Whitney had made me arrive a day early, said she had a spa appointment and couldn't check me in. So I wandered. Got a hot dog. Bought a stupid lottery ticket. Thought nothing of it. I almost tossed it in the trash. But something stopped me. Instead, I slid it into my wallet, the same one that wasn't a joke. Then I closed the drawer and turned on the TV for the first time in weeks. The news was just wrapping up, but I caught the tail end of a segment. And in tonight's top story, the $114 million mega jackpot winning ticket was sold right here in Texas, but nobody has claimed it yet. Check your numbers, folks. Someone's life is about to change. I looked at the ticket. Then back at the screen. Then back at the ticket. And that's when the first smile in days tugged at the corner of my mouth. Because something was about to shift. Not just for me. But for everyone who ever thought I'd stay small forever. The morning after I saw the news, I did something I hadn't done in years. I sat down at the kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee and a notepad. I didn't touch the remote. Didn't check my phone. I just sat there and stared at that lottery ticket like it had grown teeth and was about to speak. $114 million. That's what the news anchor said. A ticket bought at a rundown Chevron station off I-35, not 2 blocks from where I'd filled up the rental car Whitney made me book myself. The gas station with the flickering sign. The one with the cashier who didn't look up from her phone the whole time I was in there. That was the place. I remembered it clearly now. And the date on the ticket matched. So I pulled up the winning numbers on my phone. Crossed them against the ones I'd scrawled on the back of my grocery receipt. 13, 27. 44, 56. 62, Megaball, 18. I checked them once. Twice. A third time. Then I just stared. Not breathing. Not blinking. Not moving. Like if I shifted even a little, the universe would take it back. But the numbers didn't change. They were mine. Every single one of them. The first sound that escaped my throat was somewhere between a laugh and a gasp. Not joyful, not quite. Just, stunned. For a few minutes, I just sat there. Coffee going cold. The hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. I think my brain needed time to reboot. Like an old computer trying to open a file that was too big. I was rich. No, not just rich. Obscenely rich. And the first emotion I felt wasn't celebration. It was suspicion. Because that's what happens when you've lived a life like mine. When you've been left off guest lists. Given moldy wallets. Laughed at across linen-covered tables while some smug bastard in a white suit hands your legacy to another man. You don't jump up and down. You start thinking. Planning. Plotting. I didn't call anyone. Didn't post online. Didn't even text an old friend. I just folded the ticket neatly, slid it back into my real wallet, and poured myself another cup of coffee. Then I pulled out a yellow legal pad and started a list. What to do before claiming the money. 1. Find a lawyer. Not local. Someone out of state. Someone discreet. 2. Figure out how to claim anonymously. 3. Decide what I actually want from this. That last one lingered on the page the longest. What did I want? Did I want revenge? A piece of me screamed yes. I wanted Whitney to see me on the cover of Forbes. I wanted Jordan to beg for a favor. I wanted Doug to choke on the sight of me stepping out of a better Tesla. But the louder part of me, the real part, wanted something different. I wanted freedom. Not just from bills or repairs or rusty faucets. I wanted freedom from the version of me they thought they knew. The old man, at the table. The irrelevant one. The punchline. So I started calling names off my mental list. The lawyer I found was a woman named Carla Ortiz. Offices in Denver. Specialized in estate transfers, trust structuring, and high-value anonymity protections. I liked her immediately. She asked smart questions. Didn't flinch when I told her the size of the winnings. You want to disappear, she said. Not a question. I want to start over, I replied. But I want to do it in a way no one sees coming. She paused. I can make that happen. It took 3 weeks of paperwork. Dozens of phone calls. I drove out of state twice just to file things under the radar. Carla set up a Wyoming trust, a type of anonymous ownership vehicle used by celebrities and billionaires. The trust would claim the ticket. I'd be its sole beneficiary, hidden behind layers of perfectly legal privacy. My name would never hit the press. I wouldn't be one of those lottery winners who end up broke in 5 years or mugged in the Safeway parking lot. I wouldn't be anyone's spectacle. I'd be smoke. While we worked through the legal maze, I stayed quiet. Didn't make any big purchases. Kept mowing my lawn. Waved at the neighbors. Let the world think I was still just Rob, retired steelworker, widower, forgotten father. And all the while, the money waited. All $114 million of it. Once the claim was officially filed, Carla called me. It's done, she said. The trust owns the winnings. You're liquid within the week. And just like that, my entire financial life snapped into a new shape. It was like finding out gravity didn't apply to you anymore. The day the funds cleared, I sat on the same porch where I'd once cried over Whitney's high school graduation. I looked out at the cracked driveway, the busted mailbox, the fence I'd repaired too many times. And then I stood up. Went inside. And packed a bag. Just one. A backpack with clothes, a few keepsakes, and the photo of Whitney and her mother on the day she was born. I didn't hate Whitney. I just didn't recognize her anymore. She'd traded blood for branding. And she'd done it smiling. Before I left, I wrote one note. Just 5 words. Gone fishing. Don't wait up. I stuck it to the fridge with the same magnet that used to hold her honor roll certificates. Then I shut the door behind me and never looked back. The first thing I did after walking out that door was drive straight past every place I'd ever felt obligated to visit. The bank where they knew my name. The diner where I used to get the senior discount without asking. The cemetery where Whitney stopped leaving flowers after the 3rd year. I didn't stop. Not once. I had one goal, disappear. Not in a dramatic way. Not with some angry Facebook post or fiery letter left on the porch. I wasn't after closure or confrontation. I wanted silence. Control. Freedom. I drove my old pickup to a used lot 40 miles outside town and traded it in for cash. They gave me $2,400, which was about $1,000 more than it was worth. I didn't ask questions. I took the money and walked. 3 days later, Carla arranged a private driver to meet me in Kansas City. We rode in silence across state lines and into Colorado, where my new identity waited like a jacket that had finally come back from the cleaners. The name on my new ID was Ray Harlan. Middle name from my grandfather. Last name borrowed from the street where I'd first kissed Whitney's mother. Nothing flashy. Just different enough. In Colorado Springs, I signed the lease on a furnished rental cabin under a shell company Carla set up. 1 year paid in advance. Utilities bundled. No forwarding address. No mail service. Just a P.O. box and a burner phone with 2 contacts, Carla, and a private concierge firm that managed high-net-worth logistics without ever asking for your real name. The air smelled like pine and fresh possibility. I stood on the porch the first morning, drinking black coffee from a new mug I'd bought from a gas station. No memories attached to it. No gifts from Father's Day past. Just ceramic and steam and a quiet place to start over. The cabin had 2 bedrooms, one of which I turned into a study. Nothing fancy, just a desk, a lamp, and a corkboard. I pinned up everything I knew about Whitney and Jordan, news clippings, business announcements, social posts, even a few whispers from anonymous sources Carla had access to. They'd just invested in some kind of crypto hedge fund. Big numbers. Bold claims. Flashy marketing. That was fine. The higher they climbed, the further they'd fall. But this wasn't about revenge. Not yet. This was still the building phase. The gathering. The reinvention. I bought new clothes, not expensive ones, just different. Things that didn't make me look like the man they used to know. I shaved the beard I'd worn since Whitney was in high school. Cut my hair. Bought a pair of prescription sunglasses so big you could barely see my face under them. And then I deleted everything. Social media. Email accounts. Phone records. I called my old service provider and told them to cancel everything under Robert M. Langley. I wiped my laptop clean and mailed it to an electronics recycling center. Burned every photograph that didn't serve a purpose. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't mourning the past. I was burying it. I didn't want to be Rob Langley anymore, not the man who got laughed at over cheap wallets or erased from his own family. That man had done his job. He'd sacrificed. He'd endured. Now it was Ray Harlan's turn to live. I spent the next few weeks walking trails, shopping local, reading books I never had time for. People nodded to me on the street. A few asked where I was from. Nowhere special, I'd say with a smile. Just passing through. And it was true. I wasn't from anywhere anymore. I was building something brand new. But all the quiet started to unearth something I hadn't expected: purpose. I thought I'd want solitude. Instead, I started noticing people who moved like I used to. Old men eating alone in diners. Women folding laundry at 10 p.m. at the 24-hour laundromat. Kids hanging out behind gas stations with bruises they didn't talk about. One night, I walked past a small shelter tucked between a coffee shop and an old auto parts store. The sign out front said Grace Outreach, Transitional Support for Young Adults. I stood there for a long time. Didn't go in. Just looked at it. The next day, I did some digging. Turns out they offered meals, basic counseling, and job prep for people aged 18 to 25, mostly kids who had aged out of foster care or had been kicked out of their homes. Underfunded. Understaffed. Exactly the kind of place that reminded me of who I used to be. And who I still wanted to help. So I asked Carla to set up an anonymous donor fund, something clean, untraceable, with a new name. She called it the Harlan Legacy Fund. I funded it with a small drip, nothing too flashy, just enough to keep them stocked and safe. I didn't want them to know it was me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I started volunteering there once a week. Told them my name was Ray. Said I'd retired early and wanted to stay busy. I swept floors, served meals, mopped bathrooms. And that's where I met Aiden. Tall. Wiry. 22. Recovered addict with a chip on his shoulder the size of a cinder block. But his eyes? Those told a different story. Hurt. Grief. Guilt. Same storm I'd seen in my own bathroom mirror for years. He didn't trust me at first. Didn't trust anyone. But we kept crossing paths. I'd catch him reading alone, sketching in a notebook, muttering apologies to himself after snapping at someone. One night, I brought him a cup of coffee and sat 2 chairs down. Didn't say a word. We just sat there. And something shifted. It wasn't trust. Not yet. But it was the start of something that mattered. I didn't need Whitney to see me anymore. I didn't need her Tesla keys or fake apologies. I had other things now. People who would see me, if I kept showing up. It started with coffee and silence. That's how most real things start, if we're honest. Not with grand speeches or confessions. Just two people sitting near each other, trying to figure out if it's safe to let their guard down. That's what it was with Aiden. Every Tuesday night at Grace Outreach, I'd mop the back hallway, then drop 2 chairs in the courtyard, one for me, one for whoever showed up. And most nights, it was him. Always a hoodie pulled tight around his face, hands stuffed into the kangaroo pouch, chin tucked like he was trying to disappear. But he never missed a Tuesday. At first, we didn't talk. Then, one night, he asked if I'd ever been to prison. I said no, but I'd done time in other ways. That made him snort. "That's a good answer," he said. "Better than lying." The next week he brought out his sketchbook. Just started drawing as I sat beside him. He didn't show me anything. But he let me sit. That was progress. It was 2 months before I learned his full name. Aiden Marcus Blake. Born in Boise. Mother gone when he was 12. Father dead at 16. Bounced around the system until he aged out. Got hooked on oxy after a skateboarding accident. Then fentanyl. Then, rock bottom. I woke up in a parking garage next to a guy who'd OD'd, he told me one night, eyes fixed on the cracked pavement. I thought he was asleep. He wasn't. That was the first time his voice cracked. He didn't apologize. And I didn't pity him. I just listened. That's all he ever needed. Aiden wasn't broken. He was buried. Buried under years of being ignored, dismissed, tossed aside like an old shoe. And the more I listened, the more I saw it, the flashes of brilliance, the intelligence he kept tucked behind sarcasm and attitude. The way he broke down systems in his head. The questions he asked when he didn't think I was paying attention. One night, he told me he wanted to be a social worker. Not a cop. Not a therapist, he said. Just someone who doesn't look away. The words hit harder than he probably knew. Because that's what Whitney had done. She looked away. And here was this kid, not my blood, not my responsibility, and yet he saw me more clearly than my own daughter had in years. That's when I knew. Aiden was going to be the legacy I never got to build through Whitney. And I wasn't going to screw it up. The next day, I called Carla. I need a scholarship program, I told her. Private. Quiet. But big enough to matter. She didn't even pause. How many students? Just one. I had her set up a new grant inside the Harlan Legacy Fund, disguised as a merit-based tuition initiative for underserved young adults pursuing human services degrees. I made it so Aiden would qualify by default. Carla handled the logistics. I handled the rest. 2 weeks later, Aiden got an envelope in the mail from the fund. Inside was a letter congratulating him on receiving a full ride to the University of Colorado School of Social Work, housing included, laptop stipend, therapy support, even a food card. The letter was signed by the fictional founder, someone Carla invented for me. There was no mention of me. No fingerprints. He came into the shelter cafeteria that night gripping the letter like it might vanish if he let go. "Ray," he said, voice trembling. "This has to be a mistake." "It's not," I said, smiling. "Looks like someone out there believes in you." He stared at me like he wanted to ask. But he didn't. And I didn't offer. We weren't there yet. But something changed after that night. He started asking me questions. About life. About money. About pain. Real questions. "Did it ever stop hurting?" he asked me once, after a particularly bad group session. "Being pushed aside by someone you gave everything to?" "No," I told him. "But it starts to matter less when you build something new. Aiden nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Fall came, and with it, his acceptance packet. He moved into campus housing. Got a part-time job at the bookstore. Still came by grace on Tuesdays when he could. Still sketched in that same notebook. I watched him bloom, not because I wanted credit, but because it reminded me that growth is still possible even in the middle of grief. I hadn't thought about Whitney in weeks. But one night, walking home from the shelter, I passed a cafe with a TV mounted near the ceiling. The screen showed breaking financial news, stock tickers flying, red arrows everywhere. Crypto firm collapses under SEC scrutiny, the anchor said. Hundreds of investors impacted. Lawsuit filings expected. Then I saw it. A clip of Jordan standing outside a courthouse, his usual slick smirk now gone. His hair unkempt. Shirt wrinkled. He pushed past the cameras like a man who just realized the empire he built was made of wet sand. The anchor kept talking. Sources claim Jordan Langley and his wife, Whitney Langley, used investor funds for personal luxury items, including vehicles, vacations, and private events. No official charges yet, but a class action suit is underway. Whitney's face flashed briefly on screen, hair pinned tight, makeup perfect, eyes dead. She didn't look angry. She looked scared. I stood there, blinking. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just a quiet, detached realization. She was falling. And for the first time in years, I wasn't there to catch her. Aiden texted me later that night. You coming Tuesday? Got something to show you. Always, I replied. And I meant it. Because this new life I'd built, it wasn't revenge. It was redemption. Not for Whitney. But for me. For the man I used to be. For the boy Aiden still was. It started the way most disasters do, quietly. With a whisper. A shift in tone. A friend who doesn't return your call. At first, Whitney didn't notice. Not really. When Jordan's office assistant resigned with a vague Instagram post about toxic male egos, Whitney rolled her eyes and said, "Good riddance." When two of their crypto backers pulled out a week later, Jordan claimed it was strategic repositioning. But then came the article. A full exposé in one of the major fintech blogs, complete with screenshots, investor interviews, and a whistleblower's internal emails. The headline burned across the screen like a warning flare. The Langley coin scam, what happens when hype outraces honesty? I read it 3 times. They'd overpromised, underdelivered, and rerouted investor funds into personal expenses, luxury travel, exclusive dinners, and yes, the Tesla. My Tesla, in a way. Paid for with the inheritance Whitney never asked permission to use. The article stopped short of calling it fraud. But it didn't have to. The damage was done. Class action suits filed by the end of the week. SEC breathing down their necks. Assets frozen. Accounts audited. And their biggest investor? He sued Jordan personally. I watched it unfold like a man watching a slow-motion car crash. Not with satisfaction, not exactly. But with the clarity of someone who finally understood just how far removed he was from the life he helped build. Jordan did what men like him always do. He ran. Fled to Costa Rica under the pretense of handling offshore legal concerns. Disconnected his phone. Deleted his Twitter account. Left Whitney behind to pick through the wreckage. That was when the calls started. First, just once. A missed call from a number I didn't recognize. Then again. Then a voicemail, "Dad. I know we haven't talked, but I just need someone right now." I didn't answer. I didn't delete it either. Whitney had always been someone who moved forward like she was entitled to the wind at her back. But now. Now the wind was gone. The yacht was capsized. And the crew had all jumped ship. The private chef stopped showing up. The stylist unfollowed her on Instagram. The invitations dried up. By the end of the month, Whitney was alone in a McMansion with a mortgage frozen by federal inquiry and a social circle that vanished faster than a crypto coin with no liquidity. I only knew this because Carla had someone quietly watching. Not stalking. Not invading. Just gathering public info. Court filings. Real estate shifts. That kind of thing. She told me that Whitney's Amex had been declined at a boutique grocery store in the River Oaks district. She left the cart and walked out, Carla said. Didn't even argue. I tried to picture it. Whitney, who used to mock people for counting coupons, now standing in line realizing she didn't have access to any of her money. Or Jordan's. Or mine. The irony tasted metallic. Like blood in your mouth after a punch. She called again that week. Left another message. Dad, please. I don't need money, I need. I don't know. I need my father. And the worst part? I believed her. Not because I thought she changed. But because pain has a way of stripping people down to whatever's left underneath the branding. And what was left in Whitney was small. Fragile. Exhausted. Still, I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because if I cracked that door open now, she'd pull me back in. And I'd spent too long climbing out of that shadow. So I focused on what mattered. Aiden was thriving. He sent me photos of his first day on campus. Texted me about a sociology class that blew his damn mind. Started volunteering at a youth center near the school. Said it reminded him of Grace. Of me. I hung one of his sketches on the cabin wall. It was a pencil drawing of two men sitting on a bench, side by side, not touching, not speaking, but leaning ever so slightly toward each other. He never said it was us. He didn't have to. I'd never been someone's muse before. Meanwhile, Whitney's spiral gained speed. She posted a tearful video to her followers, some desperate apology/denial hybrid filmed in poor lighting. Said she was duped by Jordan. Claimed she had no idea about the crypto manipulation. Promised she'd make things right. The comments weren't kind. By the end of the night, she deleted her account. Her name became synonymous with the fall. Headlines turned cruel. One late-night host even made a joke about the influencer who gave her dad $5 and got bankruptcy in return. I didn't laugh. Because it wasn't funny. It was inevitable. Whitney built her world on image. But images don't hold weight when the roof caves in. And when people like her fall, they fall hard because there's nothing underneath to catch them. Not unless someone put something there. And I wasn't going to. Not this time. She called again. This time sobbing. Dad, I know I messed up. I know I treated you like shit. Please, just tell me what to do. I'm so alone. I sat with that voicemail for a long time. Then I played it again. And again. And each time, the knot in my stomach loosened a little more. Because I finally realized something. I wasn't waiting for her to come back to me. I wasn't waiting at all. I'd already moved on. She just hadn't figured it out yet. There's a difference between revenge and revelation. Revenge is personal. Intimate. It's about making someone feel what you felt, bleeding them drop for drop. But revelation? That's bigger. That's about exposing the pattern. Pulling the curtain back on a truth so many people live, but no one talks about. That's where I was now. Whitney thought I was gone, vanished into the noise like every other man her world chewed up and forgot. But I wasn't gone. I was watching. And I was building something bigger than payback. It started as an idea in the back of my notebook, scrawled in messy block letters one quiet night at the cabin. Left Behind by Blood. A documentary. Not about me. Not directly. But about all the parents like me, the quiet ones, the faithful ones, the discarded ones. People who raised their children, sacrificed everything, and were abandoned the second they stopped being useful. I pitched the idea to Carla. She didn't blink. "I've got a contact," she said. "Indie filmmaker. Works out of Portland. Small, gritty, honest. He'll get it." She was right. The guy's name was Eli, early 30s, scruffy beard, glasses too big for his face. He listened to me talk for 2 hours, then sat there in silence, nodding slowly. "Yeah," he said. "That's a story people aren't telling." He didn't want it glossy. Didn't want reenactments or melodrama. He wanted raw interviews. Real people. Stories from shelters, nursing homes, quiet apartments with framed photos gathering dust. I funded the project through the Harlan Legacy Fund under a media grant. Eli kept it tight, no press releases, no flashy trailers, just boots on the ground and a camera in hand. He interviewed men who gave up retirement for their kids' college tuition. Women who raised 3 generations under one roof and still died alone. Voices no one usually hears. And in the final act of the film, he included a dramatized segment, anonymous, blurred faces, no names. Just a man in a cheap suit sitting at a luxury dinner, opening a gift box containing a moldy wallet and $5. The laughter. The silence that followed. The look in the man's eyes. No one watching needed the name. But if you knew Whitney, you knew. Eli released it quietly online under a Creative Commons license. No paywall. No ads. Just the story. It spread like wildfire. First among elder advocacy groups. Then among parenting forums. Reddit picked it up. A podcast did an episode on it. Left Behind by Blood trended on Twitter for 3 days straight. People shared their own stories in the comments. "My daughter hasn't called me in 5 years, not since I stopped helping with rent. My son blocked me after I couldn't co-sign a second mortgage. They only called when they needed something. Now I don't even get invited to birthdays." The world cracked open. And Whitney? She cracked with it. I didn't see it firsthand, of course. But Carla did. "She's unraveling," she told me. Called a PR crisis manager. Cancelled all her remaining speaking gigs. Whitney had built her post-scandal image on one thing, the illusion of control. She'd pivoted to resilience content, empowerment posts, soft focus videos, talks about surviving betrayal. But this documentary hit too close. Too sharp. Too real. She called me again. "Dad. I saw the film. I don't know if you had anything to do with it, but..." She paused. Her voice shook. "People keep sending it to me. I think they think it's about us." She laughed nervously. Like she wanted me to join in. I didn't. She kept talking. "If this is about the dinner, that was just a joke. You know that, right? Just a stupid joke." I let the silence speak for me. "I didn't know you felt that way," she said. "I didn't know I made you feel like nothing." I wanted to scream. "You didn't know. You were there. You handed me that wallet like it was a party favor and then laughed while your husband made eye contact with the waiter over my shoulder." But I didn't scream. I just let her talk. "Maybe we could meet," she said. "Just talk. Clear the air. I think we need that." But she didn't mean we. She meant her. She needed to clear her air. To rewrite the story now that the world saw a version she didn't control. I didn't answer. And I didn't delete the message. Instead, I forwarded the final cut of the film to Aiden. "Watch this when you're ready," I texted. He replied 3 hours later. I cried. Then I got angry. Then I cried again. It's the most honest thing I've ever seen. Thank you for making it. That's when I knew I'd done the right thing. Not because it hurt Whitney. But because it helped others. It helped Aiden. It helped me. The film was picked up for a small regional documentary award 2 months later. Eli called me the night he got the email. We did it, man, he said. You'll stay anonymous, of course. But the story? It's going to reach people. That's all I ever wanted. Not to be famous. Just to be heard. To matter. And now, I did. In a way no Father's Day dinner or $5 wallet could erase. People always think closure happens in a courtroom or over coffee or through some teary apology that ties everything up with a bow. It doesn't. Real closure is cold. Bureaucratic. Signed in ink and filed with the county clerk. It's a form with a date and a signature that says, this version of me is dead. You don't get to reach me anymore. That's exactly how I wanted it. Carla helped me handle the legal side. Missouri law doesn't make it easy, but we made it work. I transferred my assets into a living trust, renamed everything under the Harlan Foundation, and declared myself legally deceased, Robert M. Langley, deceased for estate purposes only. I wasn't dying. I was disappearing. And to sell the story, we staged a funeral. It wasn't an actual service. It was a private will execution event disguised as a memorial, technically legal, if a bit unconventional. Carla called it innovative estate theater. I called it necessary. We rented a chapel. Sent out printed invitations. Black script on ivory cardstock. In loving memory of Robert M. Langley. A private memorial and reading of final wishes. For immediate family and listed beneficiaries only. The guest list was small. Whitney, of course. Doug and Jordan didn't show. No surprise there. 2 old friends from the neighborhood came. A neighbor I used to mow lawns with. And a few volunteers from Grace Outreach who knew the truth, but kept it quiet. They sat in the back, somber, respectful. Not a word out of place. Whitney arrived last, dressed in expensive grief. Black silk blouse. Oversized sunglasses. Hair in a bun. I could see the performance from a mile away, all sharp edges and dramatic pauses. She walked in like a woman expecting closure and inheritance. She got neither. Carla opened the ceremony with brief remarks. Mr. Langley's passing was peaceful, and he left behind specific wishes that must be honored in full. She handed out printed copies of the will. Whitney didn't even try to hide it, she flipped straight to the assets section. Her eyes scanning like a hawk over a field of rabbits. But the wording stopped her cold. All assets of the estate, financial, physical, and intellectual, are to be liquidated or transferred in full to the Harlan Foundation, a non-profit established to support adult children estranged from their parents. A pause. A breath. A stifled cough from the back row. Carla cleared her throat. There are no financial disbursements to biological heirs. Whitney blinked. Then looked up, lips parting like she was about to argue. But Carla wasn't done. There is, however, a letter. She walked forward and handed Whitney a sealed envelope. I'd written it a month earlier. On the front, in my handwriting, since you always measured love in dollars. She opened it with shaky fingers. Inside was a single folded bill. $5. And a note. Since you always measured love in dollars, I'm giving you the value you assigned to me. Whitney's breath caught. Her hand trembled. And then, she laughed. Not loudly. Not joyfully. But that kind of disbelieving, brittle laugh that escapes when the last thread snaps. She shook her head, closed the envelope, and said nothing. No outburst. No denial. Just silence. Carla continued. The Harlan Foundation will fund scholarships, housing programs, and mental health services for adults abandoned or neglected by their families. It is, per Mr. Langley's request, a living rebuke to the idea that blood entitles you to access. The room stayed still. Even the air felt thick. Whitney stood up, smoothed her skirt, and walked out without looking back. I watched from the upstairs observation window, hidden behind tinted glass. Carla had insisted I stay out of sight. Legally dead men don't attend their own will readings. But I needed to see it. Not to gloat. To end it. To finally release the grip that Father's Day wallet had wrapped around my spine. As Whitney's car pulled away, I realized something. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't even resent her. I just didn't know her. And that was okay. Because I wasn't grieving who she'd become. I was honoring who I'd been, the father, the builder, the silent giver. And that man deserved a send-off, even if it came with no casket. The next day, the donations started rolling in. The film had opened the door. The will lit the fire. People wrote in from all over the country. I thought I was alone. Thank you for showing me that walking away doesn't mean giving up. My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 6 years. Today I wrote her out of my will, and I feel free. Freedom. That was the word that kept echoing. Not revenge. Not justice. Just freedom. I called Aiden that night. Tuesday's still open? I asked. Always, he said. And I could hear the smile in his voice. I didn't tell him what happened at the will reading. Didn't need to. Because some things don't need to be explained. They just need to be witnessed. It was late October when she finally found me. I'd been in Colorado for nearly a year by then. A full cycle through the seasons. My cabin smelled like pine and brewed coffee. My days were slow, intentional, quiet. I'd learned to make peace with silence. I'd learned to be again. I thought she might never come. But I should have known. Some people don't come for love, or forgiveness, or even answers. They come because they've lost all their other lifelines. And I was her last one. It started with a knock. Firm. Not frantic. Not tentative. Just sharp enough to make me pause. I stood at the kitchen counter, knife in one hand, tomato in the other. The smell of garlic and rosemary drifted through the room. I was making dinner. For Aiden. He was due any minute. Another knock. I dried my hands and went to the door. When I opened it, I didn't speak. Neither did she. Whitney stood on my porch like a stranger on borrowed time. Her once pristine hair was tied back messily. The makeup she always used like armor was gone. She looked older. Not in years, in wear. In exhaustion. "Dad," she said. I didn't answer. I just leaned against the doorframe and waited. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, voice cracking. "The documentary, someone sent it to me." I kept digging. I found a film blog that posted behind-the-scenes shots from the screening. You were in one of them. Not named. But I knew it was you. I just knew. So that was it. A leak through kindness. She glanced past me into the house. Her eyes landed on the framed sketch Aiden had given me. Then the bookshelf. Then the table, set for two. "You look good," she said. "Healthy." I raised an eyebrow. Still didn't speak. Whitney shifted, hugging herself. Her coat was thin. Her heels, once red-bottomed and boastful, were scuffed and peeling. She wasn't performing anymore. "I lost everything," she whispered. "The lawsuits. The mortgage. Jordan's gone, vanished into some offshore nightmare. The IRS froze the last of our accounts. I've been sleeping on a friend's couch for 3 weeks. I waited. I was wrong, she finally said. I treated you like you didn't matter. Like a prop. And she choked on it. I hate who I became. Still, I said nothing. Because this wasn't about me anymore. It was about her finally hearing her own echo. She stepped forward, desperate now. I'm not here for money, I swear. I want a chance. To fix things. To know you again. To rebuild something. Her voice dropped. I miss you. And that's when I finally spoke. Slow. Steady. Calm. I forgave you. She blinked. What? I forgave you, I repeated. Months ago. I don't carry that weight anymore. Relief broke across her face. But I wasn't finished. I forgave you, I said again. But forgiveness isn't the same as access. The smile died on her lips. She stared at me like I'd hit her. And maybe I had. Because that's what people like her never understand, that being let off the hook doesn't mean you get to climb back in the boat. You don't owe me anything, she whispered. No, I said. And you don't get anything either. She stepped back. Swallowed hard. Then why did you answer the door? I looked past her, toward the trees swaying in the mountain wind. Because I needed you to see who I became without you. Whitney nodded once. Bit her lip. Tried to stay composed. I'll go, she said. But, just tell me one thing. I waited. Was that the moment you decided I was done? I shook my head. No, I said. That was the moment I realized you were. She closed her eyes. Just for a second. Then she turned and walked off the porch, back to the borrowed car she'd parked by the tree line. No look back. No final plea. Just footsteps on gravel and a door that shut too softly to feel real. I watched until her taillights disappeared. Then I shut the door. Locked it. And finished slicing the tomato. Aiden arrived 10 minutes later. Something smell good in here, he said, dropping his backpack by the door. Roast chicken, I said. And sautéed spinach. You're not getting out of vegetables just because you got an A. He grinned. Tossed me a small envelope. What's this? Early birthday card. Sorry it's cheesy. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Thanks for choosing me, even when no one else did. You're not my dad by blood, but you're the only one I ever wanted. My throat tightened. But I smiled. And for the first time in years, I meant it. We ate by candlelight that night. No occasion. No fanfare. Just warmth and food and laughter that didn't feel forced. Outside, the mountain wind howled. But inside? Peace. Not silence. Peace. I used to think legacy meant leaving something behind for your children. Now I know better. Legacy isn't what you leave for someone. It's what you leave in the world, regardless of who shows up to claim it. Aiden and I sat under the porch lights one night in early spring. The mountains were still wearing their last dusting of snow. He'd just gotten his letter, early acceptance to the master's program in clinical social work. Full ride. All expenses covered by a fellowship from a national mental health fund. I couldn't have done this without you, he said, kicking his boots against the rail. You could have, I replied. But I'm glad I was here to see it. He smiled. That shy, lopsided smile I'd come to recognize as his version of saying thank you when the words didn't quite reach. I looked out into the trees and felt something shift. Not dramatically. Not like some Hallmark ending. Just a quiet, internal exhale. Peace, not because everything made sense, but because I didn't need it to anymore. The next morning, I signed the final papers. Harlan's house was official. A residential program for young adults aged 18 to 26 who'd aged out of the system or been abandoned by their families. Not a shelter. A home. Full counseling support. Educational stipends. Workshops. Community dinners. A place to be seen. Aiden would run it. That had always been the plan, even if he didn't know it. He read the deed in silence, then looked up with glassy eyes. I don't know if I can live up to this. You already have, I said. He hugged me. Not the kind of quick, one-arm hug men give when they're uncomfortable. This was full. Real. The kind that says you matter to me more than you'll ever understand. That night, we held a small launch dinner. Not a gala. No speeches or velvet ropes. Just a table in the backyard, candles in jars, folding chairs, and a handful of volunteers, social workers, and kids from the program's pilot run. Laughter. Music from someone's Bluetooth speaker. The smell of grilled chicken and warm bread. No one there knew who Whitney was. No one mentioned her name. And for once, I didn't think about her at all. The next week, Eli texted me. Left behind by blood, just one regional best short doc. You cool if I mention Harlan's house during the Q&A? Of course, I replied. Want to come to the screening? I thought about it. Then wrote back, send me the link. I'll watch it here, where the stars are real and the popcorn doesn't cost $20. I did watch it. Sat alone in the cabin, fireplace crackling, Aiden's old sketchbook on the coffee table. The documentary hit differently this time. Not painful. Not sharp. Just, honest. At the end, they showed a series of anonymous quotes from people interviewed. He was my dad, even if I wasn't his child. You don't have to stay where you're not wanted. Family isn't blood. It's consistency. And then came the final line, white letters on a black screen. You're allowed to walk away, and build something beautiful behind you. I sat there for a long time. Didn't cry. Didn't smile. Just breathed. A week later, I was at the hardware store picking up supplies for the garden beds we were building behind Harlan's house. I'd picked out the lumber and was checking out when the cashier, a kid maybe 20, looked at my name on the card. Harlan, he said. Like the foundation? Something like that, I said. He nodded. That place saved my cousin. She was living in her car before she got in. Said it was the first time she'd been hugged in years. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Then he asked the question. The one that always used to catch in my throat. You got any kids? I looked him in the eye. And I smiled. No, I said. But I left behind something better. He bagged the nails and screws and handed me the receipt. Well, he said, whatever it is, it's working. I walked out into the morning light, air crisp with that spring bite, and loaded the lumber into the truck. The road back to the cabin was quiet. Pine trees lined both sides. And as I drove, I thought about all the people I'd lost. My wife. My friends. Even my name. But not once did I feel empty. Because the truth is, I was never just a father. I was a builder. And now? I was building for people who chose to stay.